Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about community-led volunteering with Doing Co. We're incredibly honoured to have our representatives from Doing Co with us to talk through their approach to community-led volunteering. For those who haven't joined us for a webinar before, I wanted to just quickly introduce the national strategy, which is pivotal to understanding volunteering in Australia today. The national strategy is a 10-year blueprint and national strategic framework. It provides a clear and compelling case for change to achieve a better future for volunteering, underpinned by robust data and evidence. Its vision is to make volunteering the heart of Australian communities. The strategy was released in early 2023 after a comprehensive consultation process with representatives from different parts of the volunteering ecosystem, including possibly many of you online today. And the culmination of this process identified a unifying vision, 3 focus areas and aims, and 11 strategic objectives. In August 2024, Volunteering Australia released the Action Plan 2024 to 2027 that highlighted a suite of 22 actions that have been committed to by the volunteering ecosystem to drive us towards achieving the vision in the strategy. The actions include commitments from 5 federal government departments and agencies, 7 state and territory volunteering peak bodies, the National Volunteering Research Network, Volunteering Australia, and Justice Connect. These actions are a mix of new and aligned actions that are designed to build momentum towards the strategy's goals over the next 3 years. We know that there is a lot of work that's gone into the national strategy from all of those wonderful stakeholders outlined in the previous slide, but we also know there's lots of work happening across the country that we don't know about. So we want to hear from you. If you've worked to implement some of the actions, maybe you've put together a model of community-led volunteering like the speakers today, or maybe you've implemented a mechanism to capture volunteer voice at your organisation, we want to hear your story. Our email details are on the screen and we'd love you to get in touch. Today's webinar focuses on community-led volunteering, which is a very important and ongoing way in which volunteering is evolving. The quote on screen from the National Strategy articulates why this is so important. Empowering and enabling communities to be drivers of how volunteering influences their future will ensure everyone who wants to participate can do so respective of their level of power or access to resources. This focus area is about making sure we understand that volunteering can look very different for different people and communities, that access can be harder for some communities, and that we want to make sure everyone in Australia has access to the benefits of volunteering if they want to participate. For those not involved day to day, it can be easy to forget how diverse volunteering is. Volunteers show up to schools, national parks, disaster sites, sporting clubs, office buildings, all in the hopes of building the kind of society they want to live in. Sometimes this presents as a long-term commitment straight up to an organisation or a volunteer role, but more and more these days, individuals' journeys to volunteering start in a much different way, and they're driven by the community members themselves, where those individuals partner with government, with local businesses, with not-for-profits, to create change in their local communities and achieve certain goals. Self-mobilisation has always been one of the really defining features of volunteering. The way our formal system has been designed doesn't adequately recognise community-led initiatives or informal initiatives and how they interact with established volunteer-involving organisations and government. Formal volunteer-involving organisations can learn a lot from these initiatives and approaches. It talks to the importance of volunteers being able to see their impact, match projects to their motivation, and designing volunteering with community to ensure that opportunities and programs are driven by their desires and needs, rather than a top-down approach. Today's presenters from Doing Co are a great example of this and how you can embed volunteering extremely locally in place. Their model is a great example of how community-driven energy and enthusiasm can be scaled and yet still achieve incredible local impacts and ripple effects. So I won't give away too much of their story, but I'm very honoured to introduce Kendall Terrell, the General Manager of Partnerships and Impact at Doing Co, and Dave Lindner, who's from Vic Park Collective and Befriend, to tell their stories of volunteering and placemaking, which will hopefully inspire reflection on how to frame volunteering as first and foremost community-led. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Kendall.
Thanks, Sarah. that lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be joining you today to share some pretty out there ideas, really, on how we go about our work of reframing volunteering. So as Sarah said, I work for an organisation called The Doing Co. We're a non-profit social enterprise born out of Western Australia back in 2018. And our purpose is to unlock the potential of people and places through doing. We represent now an enormous movement of what we call positive doers. And over 150 of those have formalised through what we call town teams in Western Australia. Over 50% of them are in regional WA. And essentially what that is just a new way of organising in place and motivating local businesses and residents to come together to contribute locally. The movement's grown interstate and also internationally, and our platform on doingco.org shares all of those community groups and individual doers and the doings to make it easier for people to be inspired and contribute locally. What I wanted to do now is just to share with you some ideas on and rationale as to the way we work and why. So firstly, over the 10 years, what we've been able to identify and crystallise is this hypothesis that top-down government approaches and passive civic behaviours are mutually reinforcing. And what that means is, over time, as people have participated in community life less, governments and institutions have had to step in to do more. And as they've had to do more, they've laid in compliance and litigation burdens. And now we're at a point in time where it's actually really tricky for communities to step up and contribute. And a lot of communities feel like they don't really have permission to act, or they're quite overwhelmed by those processes. The good news story is that the reverse is also true. So if we start to reevaluate the way those two sides interact, community and institutions, we can then unlock collaborative government approaches and activate more civic behaviours and contributions, and the two become mutually reinforcing. And why this work is important is when we reflect on this problem and this crisis of disconnection, what we see is huge disengagement and this idea that it's us versus them. We know trust is declining and frustration is growing, and communities are seen as recipients of services and not co-creators of solutions. And this is really centred on this idea of this zero risk mindset. But what this fails to acknowledge, in our view, is one of the biggest risks, and that's the risk of apathy. It's the risk of doing nothing. Occupational health and safety risks are very important, but we want to reimagine risk registers that start to think about that as well. So our approach is how to, I guess, build a bridge between communities and the systems to enable people to work together, to build trust, shared responsibility, and to create connections with each other. Our view is that everybody has the potential to be a doer, and there's two types of doers in our world. The first is the local doer. So these are people in communities that may not know it yet, but really step up and have a go and contribute. And secondly, the other type of doer is the system shaper. So these are the professionals that are working with institutions and in governments that are really trying to drive positive change. And when we identify those wonderful system shapers and connect them with other like-minded people like them, we start to be able to activate the systems change that make it easier for the local doers to step up and contribute. The way we go about our work is really centred on this idea of to, for, with and by, and acknowledging that no one of these is more or less important or valuable than the other, but this as a system of contribution is where we can start to think about ways we can do things differently. So the first is this idea of doing to, so that's where actions are done to a community based on what professionals think they need. The second is this idea of doing for. So this is where community are informed, or outcomes in community are informed by a public consultation process. And then there's this really interesting space around doing with. And this is where a lot of the opportunity for us lies, where we start to support both professionals and community members to come together to co-design and co-create solutions. And then there's this really kind of long forgotten space of doing by. And doing by is where communities solve local problems on their own, but with the support of governments and institutions, but in a slightly stepped back way. So they're there cheering on the sidelines, but they have high trust in those community organisations to get on and get stuff done. Another way to reflect on how we sort of unlock participation and engage more people in volunteering and community contributing locally is through our scale of doing. So at the starting point of this scale is how we unlock agency. And this stuff is doesn't get enough attention. It's really important, and this is the fun, informal ways of contributing. This is about getting together to build a planter box and, you know, putting it on the verge. It's about painting hopscotches or having a community picnic. All of these little acts that spark connection with neighbours and people locally, and actually build the confidence and the passion and the ideas to do more. When we unlock agency, we start to support people in their informal contributions, and that's really important. And if people want to stay in that informal space, that's wonderful. It's a really important part of the ecosystem. But if and when they're ready to formalise their doing and perhaps become incorporated, we've got ways to support them with that as well. And we have a version of the model rules that start to share those roles of treasurer, secretary, president, and vice president, so that the demands of that are easier. We also, through our movement, connect people to share ideas on how they're navigating insurance challenges and other risk challenges, so that that shared knowledge can help make it easier to contribute. What we've learned as well now, as people have matured in their organising, quite often they find the motivation and the interest to take on bigger problems within their community, and it's really helpful to share those insights as well. And then there's this really interesting space now, particularly with some of the groups that we sort of are connected with and work with around this idea of community-owned assets. So this is a really interesting space, and we think a huge opportunity in creating vibrant communities where those community groups might want to become a co-op or a foundation, and then they actually decide to, you know, buy the local supermarket or the pub and have people contribute and volunteer and help run those assets as well. One of the wonderful organisations, community organisations that's been on this journey of the scale of doing is joining us today, and that's Dave Linder. So I'd like to hand over to you now, Dave, to share your journey.
Thank you, Kendall. Hello, everyone. My name's Dave. I'm part of a little organisation called the Vic Park Collective. We are a group of local residents and business owners who live in Vic Park in a city suburb of Perth, and we've been around since about 2013. And our vision for since the beginning has been to make Vic Park uniquely awesome. We do that in a variety of different ways. We run an annual lasagna bake-off, which I am fortunate enough to judge. We run community conversations like TED Talks with beer. We shut down the local streets and run street parties. We wrote the urban forest strategy for our local government after some tree loss as a result of a large construction project. We run smaller things as well. We run an event called Classic Album Sundays, where people come along and just sit down and chill out while listening to a classic album on vinyl for the afternoon on beanbags, and then just having a lovely, relaxing time. We've been doing that for, well, quite a few years, actually, almost 10 years. And we had this kind of moment of, existential crisis, it would be fair to say. There were a few of us, the core group, and we were pretty tired. There were 4 of us left, and we were pretty exhausted. We felt like, well, we wondered whether we had done all the things we had set out to do. Was Vic Park, our little neighbourhood, our corner of the world, uniquely awesome by that point? What else could we do? Did we, our jobs had given us more responsibility over that time. Our family lives had given us more children to look after. And suddenly we were thinking, maybe we should just call it and walk away. And then we read this piece of research that said that the average cordless drill is used for less than 20 minutes over its entire life, from the time you purchase it from a giant green shed to the time it ends up in landfill. And we thought that was not okay. And we thought there must be a better way of doing this. And so a few of us came together. We talked with our community, and people in our hood decided that they liked the idea of sharing some things and being able to borrow tools and other things from a central location. So 2 years ago, we opened a library of things. We call it the Collective Shed. It's a 40-foot shipping container painted bright yellow, situated in a very central and highly visible location right next to the local shopping centre. And it is owned and run by us, by a group of volunteers. We have over 400 members. We have a bunch of things to loan: chainsaws, other garden tools, camping gear, party gear, a unicycle, and a whole bunch of kitchen stuff too. In 2 years, we have saved the community over $1 million, saved them having to purchase their things. They come and borrow those things from us instead. No one has chopped their arms off and been injured, and every single item has been returned to the shed. So all of the concerns, I guess, that other people had have not come to fruition. These days, we are thriving, it would be fair to say. We've had more people on committee than we've ever had. We've got a queue of people wanting to join, and we know what decision making by committee looks like. And so we are just holding off on those people. The shed basically runs itself now. We have more volleys than we've ever had, and we have a surplus of those. We run more events than we've ever had, and we've had more engagement and reach than we have ever had in the last 13 or 14 years. We've done it in a number of different ways, mostly by being really present and visible and lo-fi and offline. We've listened to the community, we've recruited them, we have given them roles that mean they can contribute in ways that are personally meaningful for them. We have stepped back and said, we give you trust. So you will act and people, unsurprisingly, act in trustworthy ways, and they can make their own decisions about what the shed might need or how else they might want to contribute. And last but not least, we make it fun. That is me. Back to Kendall.
Thanks, Dave. Such an inspiring story. And I always love how joyful Dave is. And I think so much of that has got to do with contributing locally and all of those beautiful connections that you've created. So if we come back now to this idea of the scale of doing, and I guess thinking about how we sort of unlock this latent potential that exists, we now wanted to just sort of, I guess, sit with this idea: is the spirit of help fading, or is the spirit of help evolving? And when we look at the statistics, it's telling us that, you know, we've experienced this long-term decline of participation in formal life. The stats are really telling us that it's fading, and that's from all types of organisations. That's participation in clubs, community organisations, church, unions, and even civic groups. Why we think it's fading is for a few reasons, and really from firstly the community side of things. We have observed that, you know, these traditional volunteering roles feel outdated and inaccessible to this next generation of volunteers. We know local problem solving is being stifled, and that really fuels that community burnout. And communities are feeling disempowered as a result, which is driving that apathy and that service mindset. From the system lens, they're facing real compliance and litigation burdens, and that's creating this zero risk mindset, and it's contributing to the lower feelings of trust. And that's causing these fractured relationships and tensions between institutions and communities. And now community, as we've seen, is quite often delivered like a service provision. It's not this lived and shared experience. And as people have started to participate in community life less, what we're now experiencing is a generational loss of knowledge. So if your parents have never contributed, or people in your family life have never contributed, that means that you just probably don't know how, and you don't know what the opportunities are, and you don't have the confidence to step up. And that means that fewer people are developing civic skills, fewer people are feeling confident to step up. Fewer people are building relationships with local decision makers or even know how to do that. They don't understand how local systems works, and they're not feeling as motivated or informed to participate in democracy because they simply just don't know how. And why this matters is this is part of the reason why we get this thinning leadership pipelines in volunteering. And it means that we've got weaker community capability, growing mistrust in institutions, and communities are less equipped to solve local problems. And for us, we think this is contributing to this idea of an efficacy collapse. So fewer people believe that they have the power or the competence to step up. So this is really important stuff, and we really need to investigate and challenge ourselves on how we reimagine how we connect and contribute. And one of the common comments that I hear is that young people don't want to contribute these days. And I just don't believe that that's true. I think what they're saying to us is they just don't want to contribute in the ways that we have done traditionally. So what I wanted to do with now is just to share a really interesting case study that explores that idea about leading from a different angle. And that is this wonderful organisation born out of Western Australia called Cold Nips. So this movement is where young people gather on a beach in Perth every Wednesday morning. They jump into the ocean together, and then they sit and have coffee and connect with each other. It's created by two young guys, and it has exploded in popularity with over 65,000 followers on Instagram, but hundreds and thousands of people that come along on these Wednesday mornings to meet and connect with each other. And what they do as a non-profit organisation and charity is they've now gone on to solve different problems. So leveraging the community connection and the volunteer network that they've created through connection to tackle big problems like, suicide, for example. And what I really want to draw your attention to here is the way that they talk and engage people in these activities. How do they generate the interest in contribution? And what they're saying is it's much more than just, coming together to solve this issue. It's about community, it's about energy, it's about joy, it's about music, and it's for a great cause. And I think those are the motivating factors that can really spark that contribution in community life. So now what I would like to do is just sort of explore this idea of language and framing a little bit further. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you a few different words, and I want you to close your eyes and imagine what these words taste like. So firstly, committee, agenda, AGM, compliance. Now, when I close my eyes and I think about what those words taste like, for me, they kind of taste like cardboard. And I think, if we really want to explore how we can motivate people to contribute, if we go through this exercise again and we close our eyes and we think about these types of words and imagine what they taste like, it's quite interesting. So community, great vibes, energy, join the crew. All of the languages and words and the framing, that the Cold Nips use. When I close my eyes and I think about what they taste like, for me, it actually tastes like honey. It tastes sweet, tastes sticky, and I definitely want to come back for more. So this is a way of thinking about how we make contribution feel more human. And this is the opportunity in getting more people to participate. So when we come back to this question of is the spirit of help fading or evolving, we've taken inspiration from the Volunteering Alberta group, who poses the question, how could volunteering better enable people to meet their human needs for belonging, esteem, meaning, and purpose? And there's a link we've just shared in the chat now if you wanted to explore that framing some more. Now I'd like to hand back to Dave to share a little bit about another wonderful organisation, Befriend, who's doing some great work in this space too.
Thanks, Kendall. So my contribution with the Vic Park Collective is voluntary. I work for an organisation called Befriend, and we're a Perth-based not-for-profit, and we work to nurture communities of connection and belonging. And we do that in lots of different ways, but one of the main ways we do that is by supporting people to contribute to their communities in ways that are personally meaningful for them. And so we give them, we know that everyone has incredible gifts and to share with everyone else. And we support and empower people to create belonging and be active in their local communities. We don't run the things ourselves. People volunteer with us to run local community groups that are open to any adult, regardless of their background or their ability. Our role is the coach on the sidelines, cheering people on and enabling people to do the things that they want to do. Our view of community building is that we are working to build and evolve community capacity as opposed to delivering service to a community. Both things are, from our perspective, valuable contributions to make. We tend to focus on the things on the right-hand side there in the evolving community capacity column, rather than the service delivery model that we have spoken about a little bit beforehand. Examples of volunteering and these community groups: people host in line with their shared interests and at a frequency and time scale and time frame that works for them. So Megan hosts a weekly sewing craft group. Fran takes a bunch of people bushwalking once a month. Rachel's a writer and she loves writing. And so she's invited other writers to join her, and they all gather fortnightly to write together. And Dave, not me, a different Dave, when he has capacity and inclination, hosts a sausage sizzle and extends the invitation to anyone who's interested to join. So making these things personally meaningful and personally rewarding rather than defining people's roles in really niche and narrow ways. Back to you, Kendall.
Thanks, Dave. So Befriend are just a really wonderful organisation. I encourage you to look them up as well. And yeah, I guess the last thing that we wanted to leave you with is just a few extra pieces of information that you can explore if you like. If you go to our website at doingco.org, what you'll find there is a whole bunch of wonderful doers who are contributing in place and doing super exciting stuff. We've got hundreds of case studies that you can scroll through on the movement page. But we've also got this really wonderful AI feature. It's a closed AI source. That means that we've just uploaded our own IP into it, and that will help guide you on ways that you can innovate in your community contribution as a volunteering involving organisation, or as an individual as well. So encourage you to use that, to check it out. It's free and a really useful resource that will hopefully inspire and motivate you to do more. We'd love to get in touch if you've got any questions. Please feel free to contact us. We always love a chat. And it's been a real pleasure joining you today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Kendall. And I'll leave that slide up on screen just so people can get the website or the email if people would like. I just thought I'd check in and encourage. I don't see any questions in the chat yet, because obviously you both have been very clear and engaged with your stories. I'll give it a minute, and I might even throw one of my own questions into the mix. If you're happy while we just wait and see if anyone else online has questions. I wondered if you've had any instances where, different town team movements, such as Vic Park Collective, have actually, like Dave, the story around, just when you're ready to quit, going bolder is one of the best, stories and most inspirational I think I can think of. But do you guys have any examples of where any groups have sort of packed up and, I guess what that process looked like, or, what that decision looked like?
Yeah, so, town teams and I think community organisations more broadly definitely go through their life cycle, and, they might have had energy for a certain issue or an opportunity for a while, and that might have gone for a couple of years, and then, life changes and that moves on, and that might they might go into hibernation for a little while, but then another person might step up and then want to take those reins. So for us, I guess it's not, the important thing is to not put the pressure on people to think that it is a lifelong commitment. It's about motivating them to do what they can when they can, and knowing that those actions actually inspire other people and help educate other people about the opportunity to step up. So, making sure that people realize their own agency is really at the heart of all of this. And so, yeah, how long they contribute for, I guess, really is varied. But that's the real part of the movement as well, is that we keep people staying connected so that they can help problem solve and stay motivated as well.
Absolutely. And I think, oh, sorry, go on, Dave.
I was just going to add to that, actually, to say that I guess through the Vic Park Collective's experience, we're quite fluid in terms of our membership. And people come to us with a particular idea, and they might run with that project for maybe a year or two, and then they'll leave the collective because they've kind of done the thing that they were seeking to do. And that, I think, for us is completely A-OK. Like, as Kendall said, it's not a lifelong commitment. People, our kind of committee membership and our working group memberships ebb and flow with the community's needs and desires and interests.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, it sounds like, the energy is really being channeled less on keeping the organism, BIO alive, and more just keeping individuals inspired with new actions. I can see there's a question that's popped into the chat, which is aimed at you, Dave. So take yourself off mute again. How did you reinvigorate the burnout, in the Vic Park Collective Committee in the short term, while you were sort of doing your the shed planning?
Good question. What did we do? What did we do? We focused on, we narrowed our focus again on the things that were, I guess, core to what the core offerings that we had as an organization. So in particular, there are a couple of events that we would run each year, and as opposed to running a kind of multitude of events that are quite high impact but low effort. So, for example, the Lasagna Bake Off, where all we have to do is find a venue with a commercial kitchen, the Bowls Club, and invite the community to bring lasagna, and then a bunch of us sit. And so it's highly visible, it's very popular, and it's very low effort from us. And so at events like that, we would then invite the community to be like, hey, this is a thing we might be doing. Do you want to come and join us for this? We set up quite early on a website, and invited people who were interested to join the mailing list. And and we also set up a Facebook group for the shed of early adopters, was what we called it. And in that space, we invited people to say, if the shed got up and running, What would you like to borrow? So, and if the shed got up and running, what would your contribution be? And so both engaging kind of, I guess, and recruiting volunteers, but also enabling us to understand what the community wanted. And we made it fun and we went to the pub.
Always a vital part of community building. So we've got a few more questions which are coming in, which is fantastic. So the first one is saying, I work within a not-for-profit as a volunteer manager for op shops. How would you introduce this community-based volunteering lens in a space that needs to be kind of somewhat structured in order for volunteers to fill shifts and shops to open? And they're looking for any tips.
Yeah, great question. You know, the work that we do doesn't exclude, I suppose, the policies, the processes, the risks, the insurances, etc. But I guess the way that we tackle that challenge is or often revisiting those processes. Why are they in place? This is just something that's been in place for a long time, that we actually don't need to do that. We really try and stretch ourselves in terms of risk thinking. So do we play, like, how much trust can we place in people? Where is the stretch there so it's easier for people to participate? And where can we shield people from the burdens of processes and compliances and insurance? So, for example, in our context, we have like a Doers Alliance, which is one organisation or structure that looks after the formal roles, the insurances and all of that. And then that makes the contribution of the other working groups really easy, so they can they don't have to deal with that complex stuff up the front. So yeah, that's just about challenging ourselves from being innovative on the processes and navigating them with the least amount of friction as possible.
But also recognizing that there's that, you know, doing with, for, by, etc. And there are just inevitably some spaces that will be able to draw less from this, you know, healthcare settings, etc. I'll pop to the next question because it's great to see a lot of questions coming through. I love it when the first question breaks the ice and we have a lot come in. So the next one is for you again, Dave. How does Befriend navigate things like public liability, etc., particularly for things like the public gatherings, the sausage sizzle, you know, probably gets risk radar up a little bit more?
That question. And one of the ways that we support community volunteers is by providing public liability insurance for all of those activities that they choose to undertake. So we go through our insurance broker and have found an insurer that's willing to insure us and the activities that our volunteers choose to undertake. I guess there is a little caveat to add to that, which is to say that our insurance company does not cover every single activity. So, for example, if someone came to us and said, I want to do something water-based, I don't know, stand-up paddleboarding. I don't want to go take a group stand-up paddleboarding once a week in summer. Currently, our insurance company does not cover any water-based activities. So we would not be able to support that directly as an organisation. But we also offer, part of the work we do is what we call companioning, which is walking alongside people to contribute in the ways they want to, even if it's outside of the Befriend social network. And so from our perspective, we don't play a numbers game in terms of the number of events that happen through Befriend. For us, the most important thing is how many things, or what is happening in the community more broadly, whether that's within Befriend or external to it, doesn't make the blindest bit of difference to us.
That's wonderful. And yes, you know, I take from that, find yourself both a flexible insurer and communicate with them proactively. And that's getting a very enthusiastic nod. Another question, just are groups like the town teams and collectives incorporated organisations for insurance purposes, and do they charge membership fees?
all the town teams are independent organisations, and so it's up to them to run them how they like. We support them through their informal and formal journeys. We have some town teams that are cooperatives. So, you know, that's where people make the financial contribution to help, you know, run or own an asset, for example, and that's a whole different sort of governance structure. We've got a whole bunch of town teams that are incorporated associations that manage their own insurances independently. And then we've kind of got these networks of town teams by region that use that sort of umbrella model. So, and I think that's actually where the real opportunity is, because we recently were chatting to LCIS Insurance and it was going to cost something like almost $2,000 a year in insurance, but that would cover every single group within that working group structure. And so anyone that, you know, runs a community organisation would know that you're, as an individual organisation, paying like $500 to $1,200 a year. So there's real cost saving opportunities in connecting with each other and leveraging that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, insurance is like probably the number one challenge that community organising faces. And that's, you know, a large part of our focus too, is that we're trying to do that systems change piece with local governments. You know, how can they support with the insurances they have? It's always a challenge for us when we're in a public space that's insured and the community organisation is insured, and then we've got extra insurance on top of that. It's like we're insured 3 times over here. Like, we really need to work this out and be more accessible with it. So it's a big challenge. But yeah, there are, I guess, a few examples of how we're trying to navigate it.
Thanks, Kendall. And I'll put you on the spot, Dave, and drill into that. Did your model, i.e. incorporated or not, or membership fees change as what you as Vic Park Collective did?
So in terms of insurance, we are incorporated. We have been pretty much since day one. And so as Kendall said, we organise our own insurance. When we opened the shed, we had a proactive conversation with our insurance broker to find a good insurer who was willing to insure the shed and the chainsaw on loan to random members of the community. And we found one, and they are willing to insure us. And we are deeply grateful for that. In terms of membership fees, there is a very minimal membership fee to for the collective itself, like, you know, kind of $5 a year or something. But our constitution means that our official membership is very limited. But we have a lot of fans. I'm not on socials myself, but I think we have about 5,000 people follow us on Facebook and a bunch of other socials that I'm totally unfamiliar with. But the shed membership, that is an annual fee, $60 a year, and then you get to borrow as many things as you like. And because we have so many members, that pretty much means that it's not quite financially self-sustaining just yet, but it is very close to being that. In terms of covering off the insurance and purchase of additional tools and things, or repair of things when they break. Thanks,
that's fantastic. And I'm willing to bet you'll get a few more fans and followers after this webinar, Dave. So just one last call, I guess, for any other questions. And while we're doing that, I just want to thank you, Dave and Kendall, so much for sharing your approaches with us today. It's always really inspiring. I think, yeah, a lot of these really big challenges, can weigh you down from time to time. So it's always very, very refreshing to hear about different approaches. And, you know, messages I'm taking is start small and build on collective enthusiasm. It doesn't look like there's any other questions at this stage. There's comment in there about challenges, in the sporting sector, and just, I guess, recognizing the diversity of the people on this call. You know, one of the things that I find evergreen and inspiring about volunteering is, you know, you can be doing it from so many different perspectives and so many different contexts. And so just want to acknowledge that everybody has a little bit of a different context on this call, but I hope you've been able to take little nuggets of wisdom from our presenters. And with that, I think we'll wrap up and just thank you both. And I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.